Hey y'all, hey, it's another episode of Bonafide Her podcast featuring the one and only Jess Walden. Beep, 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 beep.
That's such a hype intro. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
You know we blessed to be alive. I'm here. We here. So
Yes, we are.
let's get this started. So Miss Jess, can you tell us like kind of your sports story, how you actually got into the sports world as well as like the overseas?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I feel like my story is a little twofold. So I've actually have played sports my whole life and then went to college on a softball scholarship. And that's actually where I met my now husband. Was at Stetson University where he played his freshman year of basketball, and then I was a senior softball player there. So that's kind of like where the broader story starts, I guess. But yeah, I've always just kind of been in sports in some way or another. After I graduated college, I started my master's degree and then also started a position in academic advising for student athletes at Stetson University at the same school that I did my undergrad. So I did that for a few years and then I moved to Boca at FAU. I was the assistant registrar for all of the athletes there too. So I did their NCAA certifications for them to be able to play, be academically eligible. And then I also did some transfer coursework stuff, but my primary function was to make sure all the athletes were good to go and certify their records and stuff like this. And so I worked in sports for, I mean, that was probably maybe like 6 years right there, 6 or 7 years. And then I moved to another school in Boca and worked one on one with students with learning disabilities and emotional health disorders. And I taught some classes and I did that for like 4 years. But through this whole kind of time span, my husband and I were dating on and off again. He transferred from Stetson and went to Eastern Kentucky University and played basketball there, and then from there, he did 1 year in the G League and then went overseas and started his career in Belgium. So as he was like overseas, we were dating on and off kind of situation. And then I was still working full time, somehow involved in athletics in some sort of way. So then what year was it? Maybe the end of 2019, 2020, right before, no. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So 2019, 2020, I had actually gotten out of university life and I went into corporate technology. So I did blockchain consulting for KPMG for like 2.5 years. And so 2019, 2020 is when I'm kind of like starting my career at KPMG, and then COVID hits. And so my husband at the time was in Serbia. He was with Partizan Belgrade, and their season ended abruptly, like kind of out of nowhere. They just kind of had to like shut down in about March of that year. So he comes home for the first time ever in his career, like in March out of nowhere. And so then we kind of established then, okay, we're going to be together. We're going to do this. Here's how we're going to move forward. And so then that fall, I actually moved to Serbia with him. In his second year in Serbia, he switched teams and went to Red Star, which is a super controversial topic amongst Serbians even now. Like, I can't even tell you the hate comments he still gets now for that one move.
Oh,
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like, when we were in Serbia, it was almost like a blessing that it was COVID because fans couldn't go to games. Because if they did when they played Partizan, it would have been it would have been crazy. Like, we couldn't even walk around Belgrade without people stopping and saying something about him. It was wild.
oh.
Yeah. So, anyways, because Red Star and Partizan are like some of the biggest, probably sports rivals in the world in basketball. So, anyways, I moved to Belgrade. We are no longer doing long distance. Praise the Lord. And then we get pregnant with my son, who is now 2.5 years old. He's almost 3. And yeah, and that kind of started my overseas journey as well, was Serbia at the end of 2020. And so now, since then, we've lived in Belgrade together, and then After we got married, we were in Bayern Munich for 2 years. We were in Munich for 2 years. And then last year, we were with Galatasaray in Istanbul. And then this year, we are in Spain. So I've been abroad for the last 5 years.
Woo, girl. I see. I just learned something new because I didn't realize you played softball. And I was like, yo, when she said play softball, I was like, oh my God, I used to play softball too.
Oh,
But
did you really? Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, my sister played softball collegiately, and I just played softball against her when we were in middle school. So it was like I was on one team and she was on another. So, both parents had to be in the middle so it doesn't look like
Yeah.
so, but I was just more into basketball. So my question is how are you able to like transition from, being a student athlete in college to the administration level? How was the transition like?
Honestly, it wasn't too bad. It was fairly easy. I think what worked in my favor was since I was like fresh out of the actual student athlete part of life, it made it difficult and good in some ways. I still had a lot of relationships with the existing players who then I had to support. So that was interesting because I was like their age. You know what I mean? I was like, these are my friends I would go out with. That some of them I have to help, but it worked because in some ways they because we were so close, it helped it like almost helped me help them even more because I just knew them so well, like a lot of them so well. Because the first group I really worked with was men's and women's basketball because at the time at our school, it was academically so rigorous and the basketball season is really intense in college, like as you know, and we just had to make sure they were like really on track to continue to stay eligible because the years prior the both men's and women's basketball had some eligibility issues, so the spotlight was kind of on them a little bit. And so whenever I got into my position, I was like, well, these are like honestly some of the women's basketball players even to this day are still my best friends. Like my best friend in the absolute world played women's basketball. And so it kind of just like worked out in my favor a little bit. But what I'll say what was really cool about it as the program grew and expanded, I did get the opportunity to build out the infrastructure of the now current program that exists today, which is really cool. So we started tutoring, a tutoring program for athletes that had never existed before. At the time, I think I worked on like like an early intervention system that was similar to some of like what you would do in like the K through 12 education structure, but just a way to get in early to keep people academically eligible throughout their time, based on some different retention factors and stuff like this. So yeah, it was good. It was a little hard. I was because I was in grad school too, so I was taking 3 classes and then working full time, and then trying to figure out a way how to be professional with my friends. I don't know, but it was cool. It was a really good experience for me, I'll say.
Girl, and like just the balance of it, like
Yeah.
I know people don't understand like the student athlete. Like I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, they have it all." I'm like that's like no.
No. No. Now, maybe some of the larger institutions do in some cases, you know what I mean, who have a really um how do I say this? Like a really well developed program in terms of like an academic program. But for us, especially whenever I was a student athlete, we we didn't have anything. It was kind of like a survive on your own kind of thing. And because softball at the time, I don't know how it is now, but softball at the time was a stacked scholarship. So you had the academic and athletic scholarship monies put together to make your whole scholarship. And in order to keep all of my, like 100% of my academic money, I had to keep like a 3.3 GPA. And if I even went down to to a 3.2 in any capacity, all of it was gone. And so there was a lot of pressure to stay not only on top of school, but then somehow get through softball and life and all of that. So it's not that way it is the level of support is not there in every single university. If you're like a Duke and North Carolina and Auburn and Alabama, I mean, sure, but I would say most schools are not like that.
Girl, I think you would be so proud about softball here because especially like the College World Series softball, like
Yeah.
like it has grown like a lot. Like viewership wise during the playoffs, it's literally more watchable and seen than like college world baseball.
Oh,
Like
for sure. Yeah. And they're finally bringing softball back to the Olympics, which I thought was exciting.
I know, because
Yeah.
I remember it was in the Olympics when they had like Jenny Finch and Lisa Fernandez. So I was like,
Yeah, it was really competitive. I was surprised they ever like removed it in the first place, but I'm excited to see that it's coming back.
yeah. So also like for you with as an overseas wife and an entrepreneur, like I know there's a lot of probably misconceptions in the WAGs community. So what is a couple of things of the misconception about the WAGs?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I love that you said this. Oh my gosh, there is so many. I think the biggest one is people think for the wise, it's a vacation. Like that's one of the big ones is, oh, you're abroad, it's like a vacation all year. And it is like the farthest thing from a vacation. I don't even know how else to explain it, but I'll give you some like examples. So um, whenever I didn't have my son, my husband, before my son was born, I was still working full time. Um, so I was but I had to work US hours because I was working remotely in Serbia. So I would work from like 3 to midnight or 3 to 1 every day. And then my husband, because was in the Euro League, I mean, that's like 90 games a season. So was never there. Like Euro League, you travel probably at least half of the month or more, depending on how many, games and how many domestic games or leagues you're in and all of this. And so he was like never there. He was never there. And then when I added my son on top of it, it was like you just really never got a break because that was in there in the thick of the Euro League season as well. So it was like, you know, I would wake up at like maybe 7 a.m. with my son and then be with him until 3 and then work from 3 to 12 or 1 and then start the process kind of all over again while my husband was traveling, 20 days of the month or something crazy like this. So, one of the things that people always say is like, it's like a vacation. And then I think the other dynamic that people really don't realize is so many women have to give up their full time jobs in order to move abroad, and even then, it still wouldn't feel like a vacation, even if you weren't like working full time, because I can't explain like the level of guilt that some women feel to be like, I'm over here. What am I doing? I'm not contributing. I've always worked. Like, and now I'm just not, and I'm over here. Like, you just don't know what to do with yourself. And so it's like a weird internal dynamic. But the biggest one is you're always on a vacation, or like, what are you even doing all day? And I'm like, our lives change by the hour, literally can change by the hour. Um, and so, yeah, it's definitely not a vacation.
girl, cause like there's so many. I know there's like other. It's just like like I said on my TikTok, I was like, y'all don't understand the wives and girlfriends of overseas basketball. Like y'all don't understand. Like I have so much respect for them, just because it's like, do you know how much patience and strength they have to go through?
Yeah, it's
And
a lot of
like
patience.
yes, and like I was gonna say like the sacrifices they have to put in, like, they had like lives. So it's like of course they have to support, their significant other. Like that's all the time. But like the moving and the changing and stuff, like people
Yeah.
don't understand that aspect. So
No, because it's not really common, I would say. I don't know, and maybe this is changing now, but I'll say we were very fortunate to have several multi-year deals. That is not the case in most places. Most times you see like just 1 year deals, and so you're reacclimating every single year to um, a new country, a new language, a new culture, a new team, kind of like a whole new system. You have to find new doctors. If you have children, you have to find new pediatricians. You got to find new schools. Hopefully, they speak English, but maybe they don't. You got to find a grocery store that carries food that you will eat or your kids will eat. So it's a lot of change a lot of the time. And I agree with you. I say all the time, like that the MVPs of overseas basketball really are the wives, because in order for the men or women to perform, you have to have a solid partner who can like be in there in the trenches with you, because it really is, it's the trenches for them, it's the trenches for you, like you're just everybody's in it together. So, yeah.
And also, like, how are you able to connect with the other wives and girlfriends of the overseas basketball? How are you able to connect with them and, have each of every one of them, just kind of share the insights? And were you able to like apply those insights to your own life too?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I've been really, really fortunate in that most all of the teams that we have been a part of have had a lot of wives there, a lot of families there, a lot of Americans there. And so that was kind of like my first in Serbia. The first whenever I was there was three other American wives who still to this, I mean, still to this day, that was 4 years ago. I'm still close with all of them. I love them so much, and so you really get close with the people on your team, because for the wives, you have to. These are your friends. Like you don't have to make the women your friends, but if you want to like truly enjoy the year and enjoy your time, like you should befriend the other women that are there on your team, because it, no one else understands your experience but the other wives. Like that's just the truth. Like no one else in this world truly understands it unless you're another wife. Um, and so I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of really great women on the teams on the other years, but over the years, but the basketball world is truly so small, even though it seems really big. It's you know how this is. It is so small that everybody knows everybody. So you're usually like one connection away from meeting another wife, and that's really how it's happened. And then really now what I do is anybody on TikTok I see who like tags overseas basketball wife, I automatically just follow them, because I'm like, oh, we're the same. We're the same. We're all doing the same stuff. Um, and there's a Facebook group. There's some different things where you can like really connect. But I've met a lot of people just through other wives that I've been with on other teams.
Oh yeah, girl, I'm the same way. Like
Mm.
I will like repost or reshare like the say the wives and girlfriends of basketball or football, any of them, and they have
Yeah.
like their story. I'm like reshare.
Follow.
I be like, cause it's just people don't understand, like you know, and I feel like another misconception. I mean, I'm not a wife or a girlfriend, but what I do is I'm very advocate of athletes, and also I'm very empathetic with the wives and girlfriends, because I mean, I knew athletes that were wives and being wives and girlfriends of another athlete, so it's like they understand it.
Yeah.
But I feel like another misconception, correct me if I'm wrong, is like say they don't do nothing. Like they just there for the lifestyle and they just don't work. And I'm like, what?
100%. 100%. Now, some women technically don't have like the job, I'll say, because I'm using air quotes, because I mean, I feel like this idea of the job is so different from person to person, because truly, if you're an overseas wife, your husband plays in the EuroLeague, you're gone. They're gone literally 20 days of the month, and you have kids. Like you are busy all the time. You have a job. Do you know what I mean? So, but I think a huge misconception is exactly what you said, that they just don't do anything. I would say that all of the women I met are extremely successful, either business women or extremely successful in their careers, had worked years and years and years prior to moving with their husbands. And then when they go abroad, if they can't keep the traditional 9 to 5 job, because I mean, I couldn't keep my job at KPMG because they wouldn't allow me to continue working abroad, then people just start their own business. They write their own books, they start their podcasts. So it's interesting, because I think people want to believe the stereotype, but it honestly just is not the truth. It's just not.
Oh yeah, cause like you, I know in America, like they've always had like the what's it called, the shows like the baseball wives,
Yeah,
basketball.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like this is. I'm like maybe them for them, like they get to enjoy it, but it's like. in the real world, it's like it's a whole different ball game. So it's like, and my thing is to like, okay, first of all, shout out to you because I love your business. Because I was
Oh,
checking,
thank you.
I was like, at first, how I first checked out your business too, because we actually follow the same person. We actually follow this same people. What's it called? What's her name? She's actually an overseas wife. Because it's crazy because I remember seeing her husband in college because he was teammates with one of my good peoples back in college. So I was like,
Yeah.
I used to see them all the time. So my question for you is, what inspired you to start your own design business as well as the name of the design?
Yeah, so, it's kinda twofold. So, when I it it's really interesting actually how God puts you in places and things and takes you through your kind of, like, life journey, because what I've really found is, like, God really doesn't waste anything, any experience, good or bad, nothing is wasted. And so really how it started was long time ago, my me and my little brother, he's technically my husband's younger brother, but he's my little brother for sure. We had like an apparel business where we screen printed hoodies and shirts and stuff like this, honestly, just for fun. And we would sell things at pop up shops. We would go to like 3 or 4 a year, and it was something for fun for him and I to do together. But it really got me into the design space a little bit. Nothing crazy, you know what I mean? But like how to use the tools, how to get stuff printed. And then that kind of fizzled out because it's really expensive to do. Like if you're just screen printing garments, it is an outrageous upfront cost. Like it really can get expensive pretty quickly, especially when you think about things like packaging, tagging, stuff, all of this sort of stuff. But that was like a long time ago. At this point, almost 10 years ago. And so then I eventually got to my corporate job at KPMG, where a lot of the work I did was design and user experience. And so I in while we were developing blockchain applications for enterprises, we would not only build the product out from end to end, but somebody had to do the front end, the UI and the UX for people. And so I just liked that sort of stuff, and so I just kind of took it on. And then I worked with another designer within our small group, and she kind of gave me examples and taught me a little bit how to do the actual design piece. And then I just started doing all of the design that we had to do for any type of client, whether it was a, PowerPoint presentation, like a pitch deck or whatever, to a potential client, or if it was a one pager that we needed for marketing materials, it didn't matter. It was just like my responsibility. And so then once I could no longer work at KPMG, I was like, well, what am I going to do? I've worked for 11 years, which is the dilemma a lot of women have when they go overseas. Like, what am I going to do? Because work, although it wasn't my full identity and I didn't put all my eggs in the work basket, when you're overseas as a wife, you still really want something for yourself that's just for you, because your time is spent at basketball, it's spent supporting your partner, taking care of your kids, taking care of yourself. Like, what is just for you? And so I was like, I number one, want something just for myself, and two, if I ever want to be in a traditional role again, I need to keep my skills relevant. Like this was the big thing, is I just need relevant skills that can kind of translate through time. And so I started designing, just picking up logo design clients or web design clients or anything like this through different people I knew. And then eventually I got to this space where, like, okay, I'm seeing all these gaps within the basketball world, right? Like there's women who want stuff, there's resources that we need, there's stuff like this, but I have all this random like design and tech experience. So what the heck am I going to do with it? And so was it last January? January 2024. Every January I fast and pray over something. And so in January 2024, I was like, all right, God, what do you want me to do with my business? I've got design clients and building web pages. This is great and all, but like, I feel like there's more that I could do. What do you want me to do? And so for about a month, that's like literally all I prayed on was, how do you want me to take my business, outside of praying over people and all of this. And so the next month, he just dropped the idea into my head, you should make resources for wives, for families. And I was like, okay, but like what? What does that look like? And so I got the idea of a digital planner in my brain. And then I was like, okay, well, wives really like apparel. People want game day stuff. So then I started, kind of creating the custom game day apparel if people wanted that. And then I got into the merch this last summer kind of as like a natural progression to be like, you know, there's everything on the market for custom apparel because there's plenty of women who design custom apparel that I've seen that all are really amazing and do a great job. But I never saw something that was like basketball wife specific merch that anyone could just go and kind of like purchase. So then I started doing that. And then kind of like while all of this is happening on the back end, I had taken the digital planner I created, which is like a kind of all-in-one resource guide for overseas wives and families. I told my husband in February of 2024, I was like, this should really be an app. Like this should be an application, a mobile app, but I don't know how to scale it. If it's really from God, God will literally drop the money out of the sky. Like this is how he works to do this. And so I had written down all of these features that I want in a mobile application, that if I could ever build one, this is how I would do it. So then this last summer, while I was designing the merch and getting this up and running, I got a text from another basketball wife whose husband had been in the EuroLeague for like, I don't know, at least 15 years, like a really long time, very successful career. And she's a super successful businesswoman. She did events for the Knicks before she moved abroad. So she has all this crazy experience. And she reaches out to me. She's like, hey, I think a lot of our business ideas are aligned. Do you want to work together on something? I was like, sure. So I take her call and she's like, do you want to design a mobile application with me for overseas families? And literally all the features that she had listed out were all of the features I had written down back in February. And this is like in July. And so while I've created the merch and done all this, really what's happening on the back end that we'll all learn more about whenever we're ready to like truly market the mobile application in about February is we're designing a mobile app for overseas families at the same time.
Yes, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. We're in development now, and so we have probably about another 6 weeks with the developers and our team, and then hopefully we can deploy a pilot round in January or February. Just kind of depends on what we can get up and running. But yeah, so we're kind of doing a whole lot. But really, it came from. I'm sorry, I'm like yelling into the mic. It really did come from being like, um, the what the heck am I going to do with my life, God, in January.
Girl. Cool. Shout out to you, girl. Shout out to you. I'm here.
Thank you.
Because when I tell you, I was looking for like designs, like I was looking for some game days gear because I love the game day gears that everybody's
Yeah.
wearing. So I was like, and then like I've had a couple of them from like a couple like women designs, and then I was like, I saw your design. I was like, oh, this is simple, but it's so cute. But I love it.
Thank you.
And I was like, because I remember you're like, at one point, you're like, you're moving, you're on your way to back to overseas, and you were moving because like a lot of the stuff is back home. So I was like, oh, because by the time I was going to get it, I was like, dang it, she's there. So I was like, so then like I reached out, I was like, I don't know if you're still allowed to make this, but I was like, I really love the one where you made somebody and it had like their full name like repeated in like the player. I'm like, I really would love that because it's just it's just so cute but so simple, and like I've gotten a lot of like game day gear for my best friend while he's over.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that makes my heart so happy because really that is why I do the game day gear because it's not like a huge money maker. It really isn't. But what I love about it is like how happy it really does make people. And I was like, I would want something like this for game day. And so yeah, I was like, I don't know, I can do this. Why not offer it and see if people like it and if not? And so it really makes my heart happy to hear to be like, oh, I really love it, because that's really what it's about. It's about making, the families feel like they can really support their loved ones in all of this. So I love that.
Girl, yes. And I in the mock up this, I was like, oh, I was like, she did that. I was like,
Oh,
all
thank you.
it's like all three of it. I was like, she did that. She snapped with it, like boom. And but my question for you is also shout out to you because there's not a lot of people that are willing to work with people with learning disabilities because it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's not a lot of people that like want to work or help people with learning disabilities. And some as someone who has autism, to me that really means a lot. So
Oh, of course.
my question is, what inspired you to work with people with learning disabilities?
Yeah, so whenever I started my job at Lynn University, where I worked with students with learning differences in the program, that was a field I had never worked like explicitly in before. Prior to, sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear construction in the background or not. Um, Prior to working, I worked with student athletes, and I did have to write. Um, the different like accommodation sheets, like if I had to work with like the disability office if an athlete had needed an academic accommodation, and so I had some familiarity with it and how it worked, but I was like, I have never worked with specifically with this population before, and so when I did, I feel like I learned so much about people, about empathy, about the world. I feel like I just learned so, so much. And it's such a different perspective. You know what I mean? It's just such a different perspective because I think the general kind of like idea stereotype about anybody with a learning difference period is that they're like actually disabled in some way, and I'm like, no, 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 this is not how this works. They may learn differently. It may be a different social interaction, it may be a different whatever than what you would typically maybe see on a day-to-day basis, but like the students I worked with were so, so intelligent and loving and kind and funny. And I was just like, I wish everyone could sit in this office with me and see, really how just not only well-rounded the students were, but how much they taught you about yourself. So it was a really beautiful experience. At times challenging because I had a huge learning curve. But I think that that was one of like more of the like defining experiences in my life for sure.
Yes, because a lot of people just like they be so judgy. They be like
Yeah, yeah.
judge like mm, like you might need to just take a seat real quickly and actually get to know the person, and then it will change your
Yes.
perspective. Or I'll say like if this was someone that was close to them and they had to see it for themselves, I think they would be singing a different tune.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
because a lot of people like and I noticed how big in your faith is too. Like my question for you is how do you balance with your faith as well as the overseas life? What like how are you able to balance both of those?
Yeah, I think what very quickly learned is I've had an interesting up and down relationship with faith for kind of a variety of different reasons. But really, I think what brought me back to God in like a very real way was when I had my son and I was overseas and I was alone while he slept an hour a night, while my husband's gone for the next week. And you're just like, I'm sleep deprived. I feel terrible. I have really bad postpartum depression. Like, all of this together, and it was like I think I had to hit that level of rock bottom in order to be get back to God in like a for real way, you know what I mean? And not like a way where you're like, oh, I pray or I do a daily devotion. Like, no, 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 like in a for real way. Like, I could not have survived postpartum depression, a year leak season, and a newborn who didn't sleep without God Himself intervening. Like, I cannot say it in another way. So I feel like once that happened, I got really serious about my faith and really serious about how we need God every step of the way to put us, not only in the not to just put us in the right position, but to see how he's positioned us in this world, in this life, and just the blessings, not only the blessings he's brought on, but how like intentional and strategic he is to get us closer to him and to continue to be in awe of him through everything. So, yeah, I feel like what's really helped throughout this time being overseas is there is a Bibles and basketball group that's just for women, and it's like a weekly like small group meeting that we go over podcasts, we read scripture, we kind of do all these things. That's really helped me stay connected when I don't necessarily have like a church community, because sometimes it's harder to find those in different countries. It's not impossible, it's certainly not impossible, but it does make it more challenging. And so I think without that group and without some of these really tough basketball experiences, that I don't think I would have been as close to God, that's for sure.
Girl. Mm, feel like the just feel like playing the organ, like ooh. So my question is for you: how would you describe your journey in a scripture? Like, what's a scripture that describes your journey?
Oh gosh, I don't let me not get the scripture wrong. It's Proverbs, I think 5, 3 through 5, and let me pull it up on my laptop while I'm sitting here. Um, because I don't want to get it. I want to get it like verbatim right. But it's about like perseverance. Oh, and you know what? Actually, let me do this. Yeah. This is it. Not Proverbs, it's Romans. See, I knew I didn't want to get it twisted, and I don't want to misquote. I don't want to misquote the Lord Himself. No, but it's Romans, but it's about perseverance. Perseverance. So it says, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us. So just about this journey, about each of these stages that you go through, it's building perseverance, it's building character, and ultimately building hope, and not just hope in anything, but hope in God, because He's literally, when you're saved, He literally pours His heart and soul into you, and guides you and all of this stuff. And none of that should ever put you to shame, but should give you hope.
Girl, yes. I'm. You're like, what's it called? You're like looking. I was like, I was about to say this podcast is raw and real. So I let people do what they need to do. Like I'm like, it's. I mean, I've had bloopers moments where I was like, oh, but I'm like, it's raw and real. Ain't it's uncut. Ain't no filter. So I'm like, I'm here for it. So, but you know, girl, the book of Romans really hits home just because there's so many scriptures that's really good. Like I know a lot of people like to quote like Romans 8:28 or
Yeah.
Romans 5:8 or Romans, you know, 31 through 32. And I'm like, it's like, but it's like, do you know any other Romans besides those ones too? It's like,
Right. Romans is real because Paul was real. You know what I mean? And like obviously the context of Romans 5 through 5 is, he was like literally being persecuted and telling his story and all of this. So this is not to say that I'm being persecuted overseas. Like this is not it. But I think the heart of the message is really cool, and that's the case in a lot of the books of the Bible that he wrote. So
do you feel like, say, the timing with, God's timing, it really, in ways applied a lot in your overseas life as well, like with, moving and everything?
100%, like without a doubt. So really once I really like was in the thick of it with my son and I really got back to God, we were in the middle of a 2-year deal. So we had a 1-year deal with Byron, or we had a 1+1 contract. And so we knew we would likely extend to the second year with the player and coach team option. And so we did, which I was very grateful for. But what I really found was at the end of that second year, when we knew we wouldn't return for a third year, is I can remember just walking out and playing with my son, and we lived right next to a really beautiful park. And I would just walk and be like, okay, God, like we're really comfortable here. We really like it. We really like the team. This is a good situation. Like, because it's nerve wracking when you get to the end of the contract because you're like, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what new deals are going to come in. Maybe you have an idea, but maybe you don't. You know what I mean? And I think we have been very, very fortunate in terms of deals. Like very fortunate in terms of good teams, good basketball situations, like kind of as a whole. Deals come early and not in November, which I've been very grateful for as a wife and a mother, to have some like predictability and stability for us as much as you can. And so I'm very, very grateful for that because I do realize that is not everyone's situation. And so I feel like when we were coming to the end of the term with Byron, this was really the first time I'd been like, what are we going to do? Like, God, like, what do you really have for us? Where do you want us to be? Like, I really need to submit my heart to you because I'm still trying to pull strings on the back end, in terms of being like, what's going on? Have we talked to, at the time, our agent Brandon, like, what's happening? And so then, within a month, you know, praise God, we had a great deal, like another great deal with Galatasaray. And so then last year, we had a 1+1 and we didn't return for the second year. And so then I was like, okay, what are we going to do? Because I knew the market for contracts and the market for deals was much different because one, the Olympics was going on, and so all of the teams were backed up. So usually within the EuroLeague, everyone kind of knows where they're going in March, and the deals are typically signed at the end of June. But EuroLeague deals were being signed in August, which is truly unheard of. So we were kind of sitting around being like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And I really had to, especially this year, I had to really submit myself to God and be like, okay, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? You're real. I know whatever you have for us is better than what I could put us in, or what ideal scenario I would put us in, or whatever ideal scenario my husband could put us in. So whatever you have for us, I just have to trust that this is the best situation, for us. And so we had another deal that was in a location for this year that I really was not really comfortable going to, and I was like, but I'm not going to split up our family, so we're just going to go and it's going to be fine. And then within 12 hours, we landed this deal in Spain. And then we get here, and it's been an amazing experience so far. So I was like, I really do believe, like, wholeheartedly believe, if I hadn't have been like, God, your way is the best way, like, and I just have to do whatever comes our way because it's clearly from you because you've guided our path this far. I'd really believe that if I hadn't submitted myself to that, because my husband and I are so close and because we're union, that I don't think we would be here. So, I think God has played a huge role, the only role in placing us very strategically where we need to be. And quite frankly, for my husband, even before we were married, I feel like you can see God's hand just really in his career in terms of, you know, not only a good basketball deal, but the right situation for him in order to build his career to get to the EuroLeague. So, yeah, I would say it's really only God, period, across the board.
Ooh, amen.
Yeah,
Because
I didn't mean to take us to church today, but that's really how I
oh
feel.
no, 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 no! I'm here for it because I'm here for it because I know for me I'm working on getting back into big in faith because I know there's, like I said, there's a lot of people like me. I pray for like a lot, like, for someone's well-being, safety, their heart, everything. And
Yeah.
sometimes, and I always say that when you pray for someone, you are giving and providing the purest form of love for that person. So
Yeah, for sure.
my question for you, and I always ask my guests this question because Bonafide means authentic and unique. So, what makes Miss Jess Walden Bonafide? What makes your story stands out?
That's a funny question because I've never actually thought about this. But I think what kind of makes it stand out, I don't know about stand out, but maybe authentic, is just that I feel like I've really used my life experiences to really challenge the way that I think and feel and all of this to kind of get me in an emotional and social emotional and all these like different kinds of head spaces to be able to meet people, connect with people and all of this. But yeah, I mean in terms of just like who I am as a human, I think uh like I said earlier, like I just don't think God wastes anything, any moment, any experience, any conversation, anything. And so I think throughout time, whether it's been before I moved overseas or here, it's the experiences overseas have really just kind of shaped into like who I am and how I think and how I feel and all of this stuff. But I think yeah, I don't know. I think stand out in terms of standing out is I don't know. It's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it. I mean, I think that I've have very random skill set. You know what I mean? Like I can randomly figure out systems and build products and do all these different things. And I think having like the insider perspective of like the wife really helps me build these basketball products for sure. Um, eh, because not only it's like the wife perspective, but my husband is thankfully and gratefully played at kind of like all the different levels from I'm only a domestic league to Champions League to Euro League to Euro Cup, been in all these different countries. And so, with his perspective bringing in and then mine living overseas, I feel like we have a good like insider view of like what are the gaps in the market, like what do people really need. And so, yeah, I don't know, all those things together.
Girl, I'm here for it. Like I said, shout out to you and all the overseas basketball wives, because like people don't understand. Like they work, they work all the time. Like in the
Booked and
strength,
busy.
yes. So Miss Jess, can you tell all the followers or supporters how they can support you and if there's anything upcoming for you?
Yeah, yeah. So, to support me, you can follow me on Instagram at Jess R. Walden. Carter Ray Designs is the name of my design company. And so www.carterraydesigns.com. And that's where I build out the merch. If you need a website, if you need a logo, if you need any of like your design project needs, I could definitely meet with you and talk to you and see what we can do for you. And then what's coming up is I'll design some more merch that people can order at the end of the year. Hopefully before Christmas, I'm going to get some new stuff out, some new designs out that can also be shipped internationally. So there's that. And then the other thing that's coming up is the deployment of the mobile application, which prayerfully will be, a pilot run will be out in January 2025. So if you're praying, people pray for us because we have a lot of data to still get through. So yeah, those are the two big things.
Yes, I'm here for the app too, so I gotta definitely check that out for real. Cause like I said, I'm a girl's girl, and I like to support women businesses. So I'm here
Well,
for it.
thank you. We definitely appreciate you for sure.
Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 89. I just realized episode 89, y'all.
That is that's a lot of episodes. You should be proud of yourself for real. That's amazing.
I'm getting to the hundreds. So I'm working on it. So, but big shout out to Miss Jess Walden for coming on the podcast to share your story. Also, you could check out the live replay on YouTube after this. Thank you guys. You're so appreciated.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you.